Hello and welcome to another episode of the WonkyCast. On this week's show, we're talking with the very lovely author, stand-up comedian, actor and all-round gentleman Kit Cox. Just before we get onto that though, just a quick shout out for our new YouTube channel. If you've not seen that yet, go on over there. We'll put the link in the show notes for this one. Subscribe to the videos there. You'll get all of our podcasts when they come out, and we'll be releasing special videos from all the conventions we go to and that kind of thing. So yes, go along there and subscribe. Until then, here's the interview with Kit Cox.
Big fucking gun!
Okay, so I guess, yeah, a very, very busy weekend at MCM Comic Con. How's your weekend been, sir?
Yeah, I think just as busy. It's been packed, hasn't it?
Yeah, it really has been a busy weekend. I think having the extra day on the Friday.
The extra day and the fact that it's now in a hall that's so large that I've worked out there's a different weather system at the far end than where we're sitting. So like people are going, where are you? Oh, we're in the cold zone, so like the temperate region. So like I think you're more towards the tundra. You need to come this way.
I think you guys are kind of the seaside. You've got the pigeons there. You've got all the birds.
We've got the pigeons. Oh my God, yeah, our friendly pigeons. It's quite funny. We tried to feed them fudge, but apparently they don't take sweets from strangers. So the fudge is now just laying on the floor.
Well brought up pigeons. Nice. Cool. Okay. So yeah, I guess for the uninitiated and people who haven't come across your books before, could you just give a brief kind of introduction of your books and yourself?
Yeah, certainly. Well, obviously I'm Kit Cox. I write under the name Kit Cox, and I also write under the name Major Jack Union. I write books in an alternate history, which I call the Union verse, where Major Jack Union was one of the first monster hunters for Queen Victoria. And it's the knock-on effect of showing the actual history of the world, but that monsters exist in it, but being kept quiet by like secret government organisations. So yeah, so all my books tick that box, and Major Jack Union tends to pop up in a few of them. Mm-hmm. And there's a nice big guide that starts it all off. So it starts with Major Jack Union telling you that monster hunting has fallen out of fashion, and he's worried that sort of like people are stopping seeing monsters now. So he gives you a guide. So think of Max Brooks' Zombie Survival Guide.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And all his hunting anecdotes come these beautiful sort of like short stories, which all include the authors that then go on to write the stories about Jabberwocks and werewolves, so like from Victorian literature.
So, yeah, so well. It's a term that I've come across, which is kind of retrospeculative fiction. So it's fitting in things that already exist within that different universe.
It. I like that retrospeculative.
Retrospeculative fiction.
I can't say it, but I like it.
It's a term that because I think some of the stories I've written, I think, are very much like that. It's taking real historical events and then kind of giving them a slightly different.
It's really nice when you start looking at it. One of the things that got me into it was I love history, so like I think it's beautiful. I love language, and I think Tolkien was a big fan of language and history and things like that. But it amazed me that how many people could tell me the history of Middle-earth. They could speak to me in Elvish, or at least write it, and things like that. But you asked them to say something in French, and they couldn't. Ask them when the First World War started, and they had no idea. You think, yeah, that's such a shame that we've got such a rich history, and you can still make that fantastical and teach people. And George MacDonald Fraser, who wrote the Flashman books, they were great for me because they were fantastic read, real rip-roaring read, a little bit sexy, but at the same time this lovely rich history which really existed with real people. And I thought, I want to tap into that. I don't want a fantasy world. I want the real world and make it a bit fantasy. So it's like you realise that, hang on, that maybe the Titanic wasn't sunk by an iceberg. Maybe the Titanic was sunk by a clumsy Godzilla. Who knows? So
a kraken.
A kraken, yeah. Titanic downed by kraken. It would have made better headlines.
Absolutely. So I mean, what sort of authors was it that inspired you?
Very much. I've always read things like H.G. Wells, a real big influence for me. I've enjoyed some of the books of Jules Verne, not all of the books. They're quite political. I think if I was to list my top 3 books, as influencing me, one of them would be Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Oh, yeah.
Probably one of the greatest works of literature ever. And that always upsets me that people who've never read the book, they think they know the story. And even the Kenneth Branagh version, so like kind of goes off piste towards
Very
the end,
much
which is a real shame because it's such a great story, so like about revenge and death and horror. So I really like Frankenstein. War of the Worlds is just another classic, so like that I really enjoyed. Again, something that people put down the Tom Cruise film, but the point of War of the Worlds was to say it was a cautionary tale to England and the Empire, saying stop invading places. You wouldn't like it if it happened to you. Yeah. So I think H.G. Wells would have been all over that film, going, "That's great," because it's probably telling America stop invading places.
Yeah.
So H.G. Wells very, very influential because I liked the fact that he could put subversive comments, because people were kind of saying, oh yeah, but it's just like a little bit of science fiction, that's not, or science romance as it was called then, it's not real. So he could say some quite subversive things about governments and so like society. So I like that.
Hide it under the metaphor.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and hide it under the metaphor of that. But yeah, and George MacDonald Fraser. I've read most of his books, all the Flashman books. I've read Black Ajax. He wrote a book about pirates long before Pirates of the Caribbean came out, where he put definitely all the stereotypical pirates in one place. Quite a childish book for him, but in the way it's written, but still a very, very good read. So like, because he's just a good. He was, well, when he was alive, a very good author. So there you go. So yeah, they're all up there.
Yeah. I mean, some of the very similar War of the Worlds and Frankenstein, and also another favourite of mine is Jekyll and Hyde, the original Jekyll and
Jekyll and
Hyde.
Hyde is beautiful.
Yeah.
So it's one of those ones that because Hyde is a dwarf, because it's. The point is it's not something bigger than him. It's part of him, and he gets rid of all his goodness. So therefore, if you're getting rid of bits, you're going to be left with something smaller.
Yeah.
But Hyde starts getting bigger throughout the books, so it's because he's becoming more and more evil,
and more and more dominant as a
yeah,
personality.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so he's taking over, and I like the fact that he will only ever get to the size of sort of like Jekyll. But yeah, no, that's a beautiful book. And Lovecraft.
Lovecraft has always been. I'm a big tabletop gaming nerd of Cthulhu. I absolutely love Cthulhu. The whole mythos is fantastic. Emma bought me the collected works for, I think it was our 5-year wedding anniversary. It was like my anniversary, she buys me a massive book of Lovecraftian horror.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
That's
awesome.
Right. a metaphor for marriage.
Yeah, no, I love Lovecraft. I especially like the style of his writings.
It's almost a reporting, and rather than writing. It's very easy to get sucked into Lovecraft on that whole basis of you're not reading a story, you're reading someone writing down facts about something that happened, and you sometimes forget that you are reading a story, and you're thinking, wow, what's exactly going on?
And that they're inevitably transcriptions of somebody who's in an asylum and is stark raving mad. And these are the scribblings of him, or as dictated by the doctors and stuff. I love that.
But one of those weird things, and so like this is always makes me very happy, is the fact that Lovecraft was like most authors. You expect him to be this great legend of a writer when he was alive, but so like he wasn't even discovered until after he died, and you're thinking this is so indicative of being a writer, so like why you're there. And this is why conventions like this are great, because you get to go out and see people. And as much as I'm published, and so like I have the might of a publishing house behind me, there's so many great independent authors out there that get a voice because they can come to conventions. And so like, and imagine if Lovecraft had conventions.
Imagine some of the fun some of those authors would have had coming to these conventions, just having kind of modern technology at their disposal to get their ideas across.
Because you think about the Inklings,
like
C.S. Lewis and Tolkien and all that.
I love that with the Eagle and Child, because we live near Oxford, so we go in there quite a lot. We used to go into the Eagle and Child every Sunday.
Fantastic.
And sit in there. We had the Old Bastards Club who'd sit in there on a Sunday. We like to think of ourselves as revised versions of the Inklings, but
I like that.
we were
I
just
like that.
Your drunken wasters.
The Drinklings.
yeah, absolutely.
But imagine if they'd been conventions. I mean, if just a few of them in a room with a few pints of real ale could produce what they did, then imagine what could happen if they Yeah.
Do you think that these kind of conventions, especially the ones of this scale, do you think they're currently veering a bit more away from what they originally intended, which is the comics and the book side of things,
Very much.
and going more towards the kind of spectacle of the launch of films, the launch of games, and
Yeah,
things
very
like that?
much. I'm starting to see conventions become more like markets, and it's almost like the comic book writers, artists, the authors. That they almost seem to be like the fringe festival to this big market. Now, when I used to come to them, we're going back many years now, but even Games Workshop's conventions were in a one hall church type of thing. Everyone would be around games tables. There would be the comic book conventions. It was one room, probably even a back room of a pub. Everyone would go in. There was just comic book writers there. There are a few of those conventions around, but most of them now seem to be, there's a lot of imports, or like Japanese plushes, or like things like that, which is fine. I was going to say, if that's what people like, and I was going to say, and you can't get it anywhere else, I think there's definitely a call for them, but they've gone away from what they were. And I think there is a danger of comic book artists becoming a fringe, and writers becoming a fringe to these big festivals.
I guess it's my thought is, is it working as a way of funneling people towards the creators of it, or is it kind of segregating them out, or is it kind of pushing them to the background?
Yeah,
I don't know.
It is difficult, isn't it? I mean, so like one of the
you get the increased amount of people, but do they engage?
Yeah,
with it?
there's you need to just go and talk to some of the guys on the stands. Everybody has like an impression of the people that come over, because we've got how many people here? Like 75,000.
Well, I believe there's 140,000 people over this weekend.
140,000 people all going past. So right now, most out of those 140,000, most of them don't know who you are. I mean, I'm here as a guest, so like, I've been invited. I'm on the program as a guest, but yeah, I'm not someone punching Thor in the face on a big film. So like, I'm not a film star or anything like that. So the amount of people just come up to me and they go, "And you are?" and
Is that really what people say when
yeah,
you first come up?
and you feel like, not everybody, but you find yourself justifying your existence all day long. And then my favourite one is when you say, "Oh well, I am the author of these books," and then you get the great line of, "Oh, I'm an author," and you can say, "Brilliant, what do you do?" "Oh, I've not published anything." You say, "Oh, that's brilliant." So basically, what, shopping lists and things like that. I loved your one about sort of like must get sort of like rice pudding. Yeah. That was my favourite.
Running out of socks.
Need to drop trousers off at the dry cleaners. That was my favourite.
But you say about film work, but you have been involved in some film work.
I
recently
have
as well.
Yeah,
haven't you? So
I have.
I heard tell of this with Mr. Seeger.
Yes, I was going to say Julian Lee Seeger, who is now going on and being in things like Guardians of the Galaxy, was a supporting actor in a film where I was the star. So I used to act, and if you've seen things like a lot of if you watch the History Channel or the Discovery Channel, when they do these reenactment things, I was generally one of those people that came and appeared sort of like in the background. I would be the butler, or sort of like the investor in some sort of like railroad or something, because of my look. And they didn't have to stick a fake moustache on me, because I already have the moustache. And I apparently I don't apparently, if you look up a picture of Rorschach, not the guy with the wiggly face, but the actual guy that came up with the blot test, I'm a spitting image of him.
Oh, right, okay.
So I'm holding out for the day that someone makes a film about Rorschach, and I can play him. But I did all that, and I was a stand-up comic, so I did the stand-up comedy circuit, and a horror film was being made, and the director decided that he wanted unknown people because he wanted it to be like a documentary. It's not a found footage thing; it's an actual documentary. The film crew survive at the end, so. So he wanted comedians because he said they had better timing when it came to like putting arguments across and things, so it came across better on screen. So I'm the lead in a film called Torn, which is about a werewolf attack, or the Devonshire Devil, as it's called in the film. And it's a great film. I was going to say it's done the horror circuit. It's got some fantastic reviews. Yeah, so if anybody out there wants to, hire me to play Rorschach or anybody else,
Cool.
I am available.
You touched on the stand-up comedy there. Is that something you still do, or is that something that has kind of fallen by the wayside,
it's fallen by the wayside. I think comedy is very much it takes up your time, and people don't realise how crafted comedy is.
Yeah.
To make something sound like a conversation, like rifting off the audience when you've all done it. You've had a conversation in the pub, someone said something to you, and then about half an hour later you think, oh, I should have said that. It should have been really cutting. As a comedian, so like you sit down and you work out what could possibly be said to you in any situation, so you can work out what would you say is a put down to that line.
It's almost like you've got a database of call and responses
exactly.
that you can draw from.
So, and it's really hard work. So even though you're on stage for maybe 5-10 minutes doing a set amongst loads of other comedians doing very similar material, because comedy is very much it becomes quite fashionable, the type of comedy.
Yeah, I mean, what type of comedy? Was it observational comedy or?
Yeah, I mean, so like I would point out things like compare stuff that was silly. So I would say, for instance, how it's not going to sound particularly funny now. This is why I no longer do it, everybody. But I would say, who are the biggest party animals in the world? And of course, everyone's trying to think of their mates that are big party animals. And I would say, 2-year-olds. Because you think about it, last time you went to a wedding, who was the first on the dance floor? 2-year-olds.
Yeah.
Who are the last off the dance floor? 2-year-olds. Yeah. So do they have that post-party hangover the next day? So like the hangover from the sugar rush the night before, waking up going, oh, seeing the tiger face paint smeared across the pillow, going, did I call Auntie Marjorie a poopy head? Oh, that's going to be difficult come Christmas.
Friction burns on the leg from the power slides.
That's it.
Yeah.
Oh, the cuddly toy you went to bed with, that so like last night you thought it was a fox, but in the morning it's definitely a pig.
Yeah. Nice, yeah, toddlers, what did I do the night before? Oh, cool. Okay, so just to kind of go back, so the setting of your novels, I mean, would you describe it as steampunk?
See, this is a weird thing. I think there's a classic line that's been said just recently, which is steampunk is what steampunks do. So, and I'm quite clearly a steampunk. I mean, not in the fact that I go out and I wear ray guns or time machines or anything like that, but I love all that, and I love dressing up. So I do. So like, but generally, throughout my life, I've got the tash. I wear waistcoats, so like tweed, but I've always worn that. So I think steampunk more adopted me because it was a great way of finding like-minded people. It was great to have a title for us all to rally under. And I think my books, because they are monsters, so they are set, a big chunk of them are set in the Victorian era. Steampunks are what steampunks do. So like as was coined. So yeah, they are steampunk books, but at the same time, they're also not.
Yeah, I guess certainly for me, I kind of agree with what you're saying, that I've kind of found myself falling into steampunk because it fits what I do, what I wear, and what I think. Yeah. Do you think that's the same for everybody, that that people come into it because they are like-minded, or do you think there are factions within it that have the kind of, that like the cogs and the shinies and the brass?
Yeah, I think there are definitely factions within it. I think, which is why it's so difficult to pin down what it is, because you've definitely got the people that came from a kind of that kind of goth Victorian background where they listen to like Cradle of Filth and stuff like that. But now, so like, they want their clothes a little bit more comfortable.
Goths that have discovered brown.
Exactly, sepia goths. I think it's, I like steampunk. I love the fact that there's a banner to rally under. I hate the fact that there are so many rules that sort of like people try. I mean, it's all these things, isn't it? There's always going to be someone says, "Oh, but that's not steampunk." There's
always politics involved in something like these when it hits a certain level.
That's it. If you want it to be steampunk, it's steampunk. I mean, so like, there's been some this weekend. I've seen some fantastic steampunk.
There's been some amazing costumes. I got a picture of the DC steampunk superheroes that were kicking around. There
was a Riddler walking around. So like, it was a gender cross, so like Riddler anyway. But so like, they had then also steampunked it up. So it was a girl as the Riddler in Victorian gear. It was amazing,
Brilliant.
spot
Yeah,
on.
absolutely
But
brilliant.
cosplayers are just so genius. There's a Princess Leia Snow White walking around.
Yes,
so, like,
I saw that.
How
the,
cool
the
is
brass bikini.
the brass baguette? Like, when it's a blue and
Yeah.
and red, isn't it? So like
I
the
saw that
Snow White
yesterday.
thing. So like the slave girl Snow White.
That
It's,
was brilliant. Yeah, I noticed that one yesterday.
Genius, absolute genius.
Cosplayers do come up with some excellent ideas.
Yeah.
Just crossing together the most bizarre of things and coming up with something that's just wonderful.
Just
at the
right,
end
and I
of it.
think that's what steampunk does. So like, people have just taken to like that aesthetics of the Victorian era, the Edwardian era, and run with it. And you can do whatever you want. So like, the sky's the limit. So yeah, so like, fair play to steampunks everywhere. So.
I guess it's one thing about a lot of these subcultures, and this is a conversation I've kind of had with a few people, is a lot of subcultures tend to start out with a musical movement and then progress, and then the people associate. Music is the one thing that steampunk doesn't ever seem to have really settled on yet.
No, and I think there's a great argument there, isn't there? Because it's almost like steampunk. If you call a band a steampunk band, or just take any band to put a top hat on one of the players, then someone will go, "Oh, that's a steampunk band," and they start listening to them. It's a great way to sell albums, because
Absolutely,
steampunks are looking for their musical voice.
there is no
aren't they?
definition. I mean, you've got people like, you've got the chap hop side of things with the Professor Elementals
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Mr. B's of the world, and you've got the steampunk of the men that will not be blamed for nothing.
Yeah.
And then you've got stuff like Abney Park, that's a completely different
Of
take on it as
course,
well.
yeah.
So there's so many different ideas that you could approach it from, that it just seems like that's the one of the big things in steampunk that I think is yet to explode.
I
as
think
the
it's
musical
difficult,
style.
because I mean, by rights, if anything, if you're going to do Victorian, it should be, because it's the music.
Like
'cause it's something
harpsichords and-
yeah, it should be harpsichords. There's two bands I really like, which call themselves steampunk. One is Ghostfire, and when they first came out, I think they've changed a lot now. But when they first came out, they had a song with a harpsichord in it. Which was really good. But ironically, it was the only song they had written before they became a steampunk band. And the actual song, if you listen to the lyrics, is about King Arthur and Camelot.
Okay.
But they changed it to the steampunk waltz. And it's brilliant in that respect. But who's the other one? Sunday Driver.
Yes, I saw Sunday Driver. They were at the Steampunk at the Royal Observatory Day. They played outside.
Yeah.
They were excellent.
They are very, very good, because they've got sitars. And when you consider that, the Victorian era we were embracing other cultures. They're perfect. But you could say, if it's about just how the band dress, then Four Non-Blondes would have been a steampunk band. Which means, how did it go? I'm going to wake in the morning and I step outside and I take a deep breath. That should be our steampunk anthem. I get real high and I say to my top of my voice,
What's going on?
"Oh, they built a bridge."
Nice. Okay, cool. So what have we got to look forward to in the future, sir? What have you got coming out soon? Or-
Well, the Monster Hunter is out at the moment, which is a story about a young lad called Benjamin Jackson Gall. And he's a Sri Lankan lad, or Ceylon as it's called in the books, because obviously it's before it was Sri Lanka. So he's a Ceylon lad that's come over to England and has to live in an orphanage, and he finds the works of Major Jack Union and realises from reading sort of like this man's journal that his orphanage is under attack from monsters. Now that one's out and is already doing really well, but it's a trilogy. So the second part will be coming out sort of like later on this year. It's already written, and it's about Benjamin finding more about himself and about his past, because it's quite like hidden in shadows. And in the second book, he goes up to Manchester and fights genies in Manchester. So like everyone goes, "Oh, so like that sounds a bit weird. So like, shouldn't he be in Saudi Arabia?" No, Manchester. That's where the genies
where all the genies hang
That's
out.
where all the genies hang out. You should know that. And then the third part of that. But I've just written a book I'm really proud of, which is set in the Cold War, and it's about the Cold War isn't just between Russia and America and England. It's the land which we kind of know as fairyland, but the classic traditional grim fairyland of like Celtic legend is actually in there in that Cold War as well. And when it moves over into their kingdom, a satyr who is lecturing as an Oxford lecturer, has to come out of retirement, and it's mainly like, what if Michael Caine was a satyr and had to come out and do his Harry Palmer thing through Narnia?
Awesome.
So, and that's called Morningwood, because there's nothing like a subversive character name, is there? But yeah, so the satyr is called Early Morningwood, but
nice.
The title is Morningwood. But that should be coming out in a bit as well. But and I hope to be doing, because the thing with publishing, being published, your publishing houses only want to bring out a book a year, and unless you're like bringing out 2 a year, so it's quite slow for the fans, because obviously everyone's reading speed is a lot faster.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I asked my big fan base, so like, what would you like me to do some ebooks? So I'm starting writing a series of ebooks, which are going to be set on a distant planet, still in the same universe, but it's about people that have been taken from war zones throughout history and dumped on a planet. And so it's going to be an ebook series, which is probably going to come, one of those come out once every 4 months or something. There'd be little novellas just to keep it ticking over for readers, and so like they'd be cheap things, so like so real pulp fiction. And that you can read on your Kindle.
Penny Dreadfuls.
Yeah, Penny Dreadfuls. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, electronic Penny Dreadfuls.
Yeah.
What can we call those? Penny Dreadfuls. Penny Dreadfuls.
Penny Dreadfuls.
Penny Dreadfuls. I like it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you heard it here first, folks.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time, Kit.
It's
I'll
a pleasure.
let you get back to the rest of the con.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a privilege being here.
Big fucking gun!